Alright guys, welcome to another video. Today what I'm going to talk about is what I think is the most underrated march in the game, right? So right now we're finishing up Zone 6 fighting, past 7 open a few days ago. Kinsland opens tomorrow, right? And this is the first time I really got to use this march in the field. And it's actually doing surprisingly well. And the march I'm talking about is Mina William. All right, so I have 6 marches. My 6 marches are Scipio Luce, Boudica with a ZL behind it, and then Nevsky Joan, right? Those are my top 3. And then I have a second infantry, cav, and archer. My second archer is a 5511 Henry with a Max YSG behind it, a Max Mina double relic with a William Max behind it, and then a Guan with it's like 5155 with a Max Alex no relic behind it. A note on that Guan Alex, that is by far my weakest march, right? When I first started this KVK, my plan was to use Guan with Mehmed, I think 5515 double relic. It's a little slow, right? But it's supposed to be pretty good. It just didn't trade that well. So I'm like, okay, let me try a couple things, right? I tried a Martel with a single relic, expertise behind it. I tried the Alex behind it. It all just seemed to trade about the same. And then given that fact, since it all traded about the same, Alex does have a couple utilities, right? It does like a 3-target, 30% damage taken debuff. He does provide some shield, and he has the most march speed out of the 3. So I ended up settling on that. But the point is, running those 6 marches, excuse me, the most surprising march to me, maybe besides Scipio Luce, which is just a monster, right? I think it's a dead horse at this point. Everyone's just touting how good that march is. Mina William is doing surprisingly well, right? So when you're running a march, there's a couple things that you can do to gauge. I mean, not a couple of things. There's a couple of data points you can use to gauge how good a march is. One is just the feel, right? So when you're on the field fighting with this march, how does it feel moving the march around? Is it slow? Does it feel like really fast, average? Is the march tanky? So if you get a little bit out of position, or you're not out of position and you're playing really well, does the march just seem to turn yellow and then red really quick? Right. So for example, probably my tankiest march, meta march, is Nevsky Joan. Mina William is not as tanky as Nevsky Joan, but it's also not like paper, right? Where whenever I hit an XY, it just seems to melt. A ZL YSG seems to melt. Even anything with like Guan, it just doesn't seem to take hits that well. Mina William's okay, right? It's okay. It's pretty fast. It's cav. Both Mina and William have cav speed, so they're pretty fast. And then they don't necessarily seem to get targeted that much. Whereas like, ZL YSG always targeted, right? Mina William, maybe it's because it's faster. I'm sure people want to target it, but it doesn't actually feel like it's getting targeted that much. So it feels pretty good on the field. Right now, what's really surprising is when I look at the reports, Mina William is much closer to my top 3 marches than my bottom 2 marches, right? It's kind of like almost like if the top 3 marches are 1A, then Mina is almost kind of like a 1B instead of an option 2. And I'll actually go over some reports to show you. But looking at the reports over and over, after having enough fighting in the KVK now, it's just like, wow, like this march is a march that nobody talks about, but actually does surprisingly well. And then finally, then there's like the buffs and debuffs that the marches provide, right? That doesn't necessarily show up based off of feel. It doesn't necessarily show up at first glance of the reports, right? First glance is you look at your sev wounds, you look at the sev wounds you dealt, you look at the KPs you gain, you look at the KPs that the enemy gain, and that's right the simple way to look at the reports. You don't actually get to see the buff and debuffs in that. And we all know Mina provides a debuff, 30% increase to damage taken. And then William has a couple really powerful support buffs, right? So it's trading well beyond the support that William offers and the debuff that Mina offers, which is why I think it's a very underrated march. And the reason why I think it's underrated and I want to talk about it is because when you're transitioning to KVK 3 or SOC and KVK 4, one of the toughest things is you're just so far behind in commanders. Well, Mina, you could actually max just by purchasing them. And then William you could get in the dailies, right? And if this March is performing so well, it's actually a way to help bridge that gap when you get to KVK 3 and KVK 4, to actually have a functional to even, I would say, very above average March on the field. And then one final note on this, I decided to skip Equpment, right, or HQ as I call them. Because it's a single target damage and it doesn't actually provide any like real utility beyond just the damage and some of the gimmicks it has, right? And I said like Mina, I think is like a poor man's version of HQ. Now I've heard a lot of people say how good the HQ William March does on the field, and I think a lot of people attribute it to HQ and then say Mina William's kind of getting dated. When a new cav comes out, William will probably be replaced. I'm actually not so sure about that. I made a video about this before, and it's kind of controversial. Some people in the comments were like, "No, I don't think so." All that stuff, right? And it's good to have a healthy debate. But William does his support, his buffs to the group 5 target defense buff and rage gain is really, really good. But I think something that we don't talk about a lot is William, when you hit targets, 3 targets, right, with your AoE, you negate any skill damage gain bonus, but also he has an instant proc when you expertise it, and if you have 5 marches surrounding a target, that instant proc does 1500 damage. And I think a couple of those things are very underrated, and when you pair that into a cav march with say like Mina or HQ, that actually helps it trade really well, right? I think that's part of the reason why Scipio Luce does so well, is that they both have a couple instant procs both on offense, but even some like damage mitigation and like shielding buffs on defense for instant proc. And when you have those together in a ball situation, when you're pushing and pulling, going back and forth, it makes a huge difference, right? So let's actually go over my gear. So for the gear, right, you can see this gear is mid. I have a blue helm. And the reason why is because I plan on getting a Pride of the Con. So my best cav gear is actually on my Nevsky, right? That's a set helm. And then when I get the Pride of the Con, which should be this KVK, then I'm going to move the set helm to Mina and then put the Pride of the Con on Nevsky, right? But if you look at this gear, right, it's okay. I have the legendaries that I should be having. The chest, and then the boots, and then the chest, and all the purple is at least crit, and then I do have 2 purple accessories, right? That ancient stratagem for the infantry, I actually use that on my Constantine. I got it early on, I think like KVK 1 or something, but it's a functional march. This gear is not great, so you can't say I'm trading well because of the gear. Now my armament is pretty good. Let's actually go over it. So armament, I think with the inscriptions, it comes out to like 33 or 33.5% of stats, right around there. And then plus the Darian, which is 2.5% skill damage, right? So it's pretty good. Compared to say like the Mega Whales, or I think I saw like a Sea Whale video recently. He's going over his armaments, and he was like, it was showing like an armament with 35% of stats. Like, oh, this one's like trash. Right, I'm just like, man, his worst armament is about on par with my best armament set, but that's the exception, not the rule. I think most people getting 35% of stats is actually pretty good. All right, so now that you've seen the gear, right, let's actually go over the report. So I made a couple new mistakes here. Right, I'll just go over them now. One, this first report, you can see this screen record thingy is over here. It doesn't actually block the sev wounds, right, which is really what's important, but obviously it shouldn't be there. And then the other one, I didn't realize this until I made this video. I forgot to switch my gear out, right? I just logged on really quick, jumped in. There was a heavy fighting. I wanted to get some reports, and I actually didn't have gear on my Guan or my Henry. And then my best archer gear was actually on my ZL. So I ran Boudica primary. So my second archer set was actually what I ran Boudica ZL with, right? So, but regardless of, you can still kind of get a comparison. You can see how, even the Mina William does compared to the Nevsky Joan, right? So you can see in this one, right? So I would say disregard the Boudica ZL just because the gear isn't as good. But you can see like it's trading 13.7 to 29, about a 3-to-1 kill point for that Boudica ZL. Whereas like if you compare to the Mina, right, that's trading better than 5-to-1 as far as in KP, and it's 13.7 to 65,000 sev wounds. Scipio Luce is my best March. This one ended up trading like a little better than 7-to-1 as far as KP. And one note I forgot to mention with the KP, I actually run half T4, half T5. The reason why I do it is just because it's way more resource efficient, right? So you're trading a little bit of a punch and efficiency with the troop stats, just for a lot more efficiency with the resources, which is why I do it. Sometimes I run all T5, definitely for altar fights and some other occasions, but I would say most of the time I run half T4, half T5. That's why, like, if you do see, I don't think I'm going to end up showing it here, but if you do see a report where like the sev wounds are about equal, usually for the KP I come out on top. Right, so Mina William traded 5-to-1. Scipio Luce traded 7-to-1. Right, if you look at this, Guan Alex, this is Guan without any gear on him. This ended up actually trading negative in the sev wounds, but then positive in the kill points. Right, this is another one where I didn't have gear on it, trading about 2-to-1. Henry and YSG. And then the last one is my Nevsky Joan, right? So this one traded about 5-to-1. If anything, this one, this report, Mina William actually outperformed my Nevsky Joan. Now, my Joan isn't max, right? I think it's actually like 5-4, 5-4. It's really unfortunate. Ideally, you have that last skill max before the second and third skill are max, but I've just been unlucky, and I ran out of the skill resets, right? But this one, the Mina William actually outperformed the Nevsky Joan, a non-max Joan. All right, next report. I think now the little recording screen is gone now, right? You can see this one a little bit better than 5-to-1 for the ZL, the Boudica ZL. Again, Henry without any gear, about 2-to-1. Right, the Mina about a 3.5-to-1 for this one. Probably got out of position doing that well. And then the Nevsky was about 4-to-1, 28 to 65. And then just this freaking Scipio Luce always performs the best. This is again like 6-to-1 in the report, 29K to 108K. Right, just going over the reports again. And then, surprisingly, this Guan, without any gear, actually traded positive, about 3-to-1. All right, and then the final report, Henry and YSG didn't do that great. I think like 1.5-to-1 or something like that. The Boudica ZL was about 3-to-1. The Nevsky and Joan was about 6.5-to-1, right? 23.8 to 104K. Right, and then this Mina William did about 5-to-1, right? 28.6 to 83. And again, Scipio Luce's Monster March, I don't know, I think it did like 7-to-1 or something. Right, so the point is, I'm not saying it's the best, but it's more than serviceable. And if you are getting to season 3, right, it's not a bad idea to actually use this to work on your second march. And you know, right now it's still not confirmed whether leadership is going to come out next or Cav. Like I really think you should skip HQ, Max William, and then that'll actually be a better combo for when the next Cav come out, right? Because it'll probably be AoE. Then you could have a double AoE march for one of the two marches, and And I think William brings more to the table as far as like utility, definitely utility wise compared to HQ. And yes, HQ has this like big damage, right? But honestly, like William has like an instant proc, 1500 damage instant proc if you're surrounding someone. I think it's very, very underrated. And this March just seems to always trade pretty good. It's decent tankiness, it's fast, and it provides a lot of utility, right? Like what's not to like? So hopefully you guys got some value from this video. If you did, please like and subscribe. As always, I do look at every comment. So, you know, if you have any comment, feedback, or questions, please leave it in the comments and I'll answer. And hope you guys have a good day, and I'll talk to you guys next time.